Hey guys, welcome back to my podcast slash now video channel, Reel It In. So, finally, after what seems like an eternity of waiting, Pixar has released a new original movie, Soul. I mean, I feel like it has been sort of like forever since they've released something, but we shouldn't forget, they also released Onward in the beginning of 2020. So, they have had movies, but with the whole, pandemic thing and, every movie ever being postponed or released, with a streaming service, it's kind of like, have we actually gotten new stuff? The only thing for me that I feel like has been really new is this Soul movie and, of course, Star Wars with The Mandalorian. But, a new movie, so here we go. Long have I waited for this film to come out. It's directed by Pete Docter, who also directed Inside Out and was on the team for Coco, two other prime Pixar movies, and also two of my favorite Pixar movies, ever. I've seen this movie, Soul, now 3 times, and I'm going to be honest, when I first saw the movie, I was actually a little disappointed. All the way, also, just so you guys know, if you haven't figured it out already, this video will contain spoilers for the movie Soul. So if you haven't seen it yet, or you aren't sure if you should see it, I'm going to say yes, you should see it, and you should go watch it before you watch this. So watch it, come back to me, watch this, or if you just don't care, watch this. But when I first saw the movie, I expected it to be more emotional. Then, Inside Out was pretty emotional for me. Coco, the whole last 30 minutes. But I looked at it again, and I really just paid attention and saw things that I hadn't recognized at first glance. Now I can see that Soul is a fantastic movie, and is honestly a movie that everyone should watch, especially after the year we've just had. It may even make you think differently about the new coming year and how to look at things differently. So in this video, I'm going to sort of dissect all the deeper meanings I found in the movie. And that being said, these are personal views and thoughts that I had while watching Soul. They may not necessarily be accurate to how the creators wanted the audience to perceive the movie. I'm going to talk about connections that I made and what I thought the meaning was behind certain things. Another note to make is that although I enjoy music as is tremendously, I am in no way an expert on the subject, so I will try to keep my music analysis to a very bare minimum. So the movie opens with an off-key Disney theme being played by the band class that Joe Gardner is teaching, and this just may be me looking too deep into things, but I think it could signify the opening tone of the movie, that the people in the movie themselves are off-key. They're unbalanced. They just aren't hitting the right notes just yet. So the opening scene sets up passion and what we all think passion means. Passion is our drive. It's our soul. When Joe first plays the piano, we can see that he loves music. He loves his craft. Piano or jazz music in general is just his passion. It's what affects his life choices and pushes him forward, and throughout the movie we can kind of question, is his passion also in a way holding him back? This opening scene sets Soul up to the usual Pixar theme of following your dreams. We can see Joe Gardner as a teacher, but that in this exact moment he isn't happy. We know it isn't his dream to be a teacher. It's not his passion. His dream is to be a musician, and we can also see that he is very talented at it. Also, something I noticed in this whole movie is that the color blue seems to be quite the common and reoccurring color. So just for funsies, I looked up the meaning of the color. So here it is. So blue often symbolizes serenity, stability, inspiration, or wisdom. It is a calming color and symbolizes reliability, trust, and intelligence. Blue is cool and relaxing. Light baby blue is peaceful, while dark blue can signify depth and power. If anything, I think they were going for a calming effect since blue represents calm, and also the music they used for the score itself is, at least for a majority of the movie, very calm and slow. So, but that's probably just what they were trying to do. But interesting. So then we get a wonderful misdirection, which is also something Pixar is amazing at, where Joe survives all these almost freak accidents, then falls into a sewer hole, and he dies. It's maybe like 10 minutes into the movie, and he dies. So when I first saw the trailer and the first time I watched the movie itself, I thought the message of the movie was going to be different than it actually was. Like when Joe is running away from the great beyond, I thought it could signify his will to live, or just the will to live in general. At first I thought the message was going to be about death and about accepting death, which can be an important concept, especially for a kid's movie. I also thought the movie was going to be about creation, you know, and sort of like death and life in like a balance. Visually, in the soul realm, I got a lot of Inside Out vibes, especially with like the colors and graphics. But since that's one of my favorite Pixar movies, I was A-okay with it. Also, these 2D Jerrys are very imaginative, and right off the bat, I'm very inspired. Quiet Coyote. I know that this is supposed to be a relatively deep movie, but honestly, I absolutely love Terry. He's my favorite character, and I don't even know why I love him. I just do. Terry time! So now we are introduced to what I believe is the second main character of the story, Soul 22. I think that even though 22 is a pessimistic character, I still find her likable. She has a certain amount of charisma, and she is paradoxically adorable. Like I said earlier, Pixar is very good at misdirection. When we take a look at Joe's life, we see him doing things alone, and are led to believe that so far, Joe has led a sad and lonely life. But by the end of the movie, we see that those things he does alone are the most pleasant and memorable moments of his life. Joe's one big dream got in the way of what the movie's message is ultimately about. Sometimes you just have to stop and smell the flowers, or smell the roses, or whatever that phrase is. This is also where I thought we were starting to have a new message, that Joe's initial dream was to be a jazz musician, but that his spark is actually helping or teaching about music. And how him trying to help 22 find her spark, even though it's for selfish reasons at first, is supposed to indicate his teaching spark. It seems to be something that he is just naturally good at. And I believe that this movie is full of different messages that anyone from any kind of walk of life can pick one and take away with them. One message that I believe the creators were trying to fool us into believing is in trying to find the spark. They characterize it as it's about finding your passion, something that you enjoy, something that means your passion will decide what you will be in the future. But I think the real message is that you don't always have to chase after this big dream. You know, in 22's case, I think it's a nice message that you don't always have to have large goals like Joe does, or be passionate about one big thing. Sometimes it's the little things in life that matter the most. You know, eating a slice of pizza, listening to someone play music, having a lollipop, running your fingers along a rail, making silly reflections at yourself in the mirror, you know, enjoying the breeze, watching a leaf fall from a tree, looking at the sky. All of these are examples in the movie, by the way. I also like 22's character and how it can relate to other people. We briefly get to see her little, I guess, safe haven of sorts, but in it we see a wall of name tags. And these tags belong to all the people who have tried to help 22 and failed. You know, in the flashbacks, we mostly see 22's mentors give up on her, yet she displays these names almost like a wall of trophies, sort of like she displays them with pride to hide her insecurities. 'Cause we know your girl got some. And honestly, everyone has insecurities, and we build up these walls of name tags, or we brush off our feelings and we tell everyone that it's okay. You know, we didn't really want that thing anyway, or or we tell ourselves it just wasn't meant to be. But those no's still always find a way to worm themselves deep inside us. I think the lost souls in the zone land are very inside out. But also another good message about how your passion can easily slip into your obsession, which is not always good and can be the cause of anxiety. And if you aren't successful in that passion, or you're not doing how well you want to, can lead to depression. Here in Soul, it's represented by these dark and scary monsters. The sand they walk on engulfs their souls and leaves them suffering with only one thought or phrase on their mind. And I think this scene comes as a great reminder to make sure that your passion doesn't become your obsession. Your passion shouldn't be something that disconnects you from life. You know, our passion or your spark should bring life to other people. And I feel like this is a mistake that Joe and many people make in their lives, in the fact that Joe turned his passion into a profession. You know, passion should be something that you enjoy doing. Yeah, but it's not always wise to surround your whole life around it. That's an easy way to fall out of love with your passion. A passion should be something that you do for you because you enjoy it. Don't turn it into work you have to do for other people. We also see 22 go into the zone towards the end of the movie when she doesn't know where else to go. So I feel like that also says a lot about it too. I was actually pretty surprised when they didn't stay in the soul realm for long. I was under the impression that the movie was going to stay in that realm for a majority of the time. But I was intrigued to see where it would lead, and by the end, depending on what message you take away from this movie, will ultimately, I think, make sense. I love the cat character. Oh my god. It added so much needed humor, and I'm also just glad they used a cat, because I'm a cat person, if you guys didn't know that already. Also, does no one see a man in a hospital gown holding onto a cat walk out of a hospital? No one even bats an eye at it. Well, it is New York, so I guess they just don't care. Another hint I got about Joe's passion to teach over play music is when he and 22 finally make it back to his apartment. First, there's the call with Curly about how Joe's music class was the only thing that kept him in school. We also find this out later through dialogue. And then with Connie, when she wants to quit the band. Even though at that point it's 22 talking to Connie, we know that earlier in the movie, Joe had inspired Connie through music. We also see that by the two souls being in different bodies, they still experience and know things based on that person's body. So how Joe does cat things in the cat's body, like chase a light beam and get sleepy in the sun, and 22 having knowledge that usually only Joe would know, such as different locations around New York City. So there also may be some Joe Gardner talking to Connie as well, or at least his influence. You also see at this point that 22 is better socially with people. She knows almost instinctively how to connect with them. Joe is so focused on his one goal that he kind of loses touch or disconnects with the people around him. He knows they're there and he can speak with them, but he doesn't really understand. But 22 has been exposed for years to these mentors, and we can see that even though she purposefully disregards their help, their message and knowledge have stuck with her. And 22 isn't disconnected from people. At this point in the movie, she doesn't have a spark or a passion, yet she's able to form deeper relationships with people. This is also kind of the point where I start to dislike Joe's character. I can understand him and why he does what he does, but I don't like his selfishness and how that leads him to disregard and dismiss other people. And my dislike of his character is actually kind of surprising to me. Usually Pixar has a template to writing their stories, and the one rule I will always remember is that you are supposed to like the characters more due to them trying than for them actually succeeding. But I don't like Joe's character at this point. I don't like that him trying to reach his goal means that he seems not to care about the feelings of others around him, which almost leads me to question, is he the main point of the story? Is it supposed to be 22's story? Or maybe a balance between both characters? Now we get my man Terry starting to look for the souls. It's Terry time! I feel like we all have a Terry in our lives, and I am appalled that there aren't more memes about him. Also, I feel like the only reason they gave the Jerrys and Terry almost like primitive mathematical and filing systems was to allow 22 and Joe more time on Earth, which isn't really a complaint or anything, but I see you. Again, we see 22's natural ability to connect with people. I think that's because we see that she isn't a self-absorbed person. She hasn't even been born yet, which leaves her sort of an innocent and a bit naive to how the world and people work. But she's still able to have those deep connections and conversations with different people, which ultimately is how we make real connections with others. If you just talk about the same thing over and over again, it gets tiring, and after a while, people are going to want to stop listening. I think 22 is a reminder that you should always take the time to really see people. Don't always focus on you. You might find it refreshing. Again, we get another hint about what Joe's real spark is, or what it should be. We see that this barber, Des, wanted to originally be a veterinarian, but due to circumstances in his life, chose to become a barber. And he's happy with his life. I think here we see a correlation with how Joe thinks his spark is for being a big musician, when it's actually clear to see it's him being a teacher. In relation to Des, he had a big dream too, but just because he didn't see that dream realized doesn't mean he failed. He's happy where he is, and he can see the positives of the position he's in. It's also at this point where the main character, which is presumably Joe, starts to learn that maybe he was looking at life the wrong way, or starts to learn a lesson. And after the interactions with Des, you can kind of see that happening. My one grievance, though, is that as the story progresses, and by the end of the story, it sort of seems to backtrack. And I'll get into that in a minute. Again, we see that Joe's character is starting to learn from 22. With her help, he's able to confront his mom and be honest about what he's feeling and why he's doing what he's doing. But this learning curve is really only him taking a small step forward. Just a few minutes earlier, we saw him dismiss 22 about her enjoying music, simply stating that it was only because she's in his body. And I like the talk with his mom because it shows that even though he has had, based on what we see at the end of the movie, a pretty good life, he can't see that. He can't see that just because he hasn't necessarily gotten to where he wants or dreamed of being, doesn't mean that he hasn't lived a good and fulfilling life. And again, we see Joe's spark moment when 22 admits that Joe showed her that Earth isn't that bad of a place. And again, we see Joe's character arc, I think, take a step back when he again dismisses 22's feelings. Then later when he argues with 22 and tells her the only reason why she got her patch was because of him. And I feel that character-wise, this is a little confusing. Usually you see that over time, the character starts to learn the new lesson, but Joe doesn't really seem to get that until at the very end, and only after he got what he wanted. Again, not really like a huge complaint or anything, just something that I thought was kind of weird. Then we realized that the whole movie so far has been one big misdirection when Jerry admits that a soul spark is not a person's passion. That missing checkbox on 22 wasn't about her finding out what she wanted to be when she grew up. The box filled in when she was ready to live her life. I like when Joe finally gets his gig and he realizes it's not all it's cracked up to be. Yes, in the moment it was amazing. But when Dorothea says they play the same thing again and again, I think Joe starts to realize that maybe his dream isn't what he really wanted. I think what we all want in life is to be fulfilled. And although Joe thought he would get that feeling by making it big and playing music, he realizes that's not the case. I also like the little connection when he and 22 are on the subway and Joe insinuates that all his troubles will go away once he gets the gig. Yet he got the gig and he still takes the subway home. I like how Joe removes the music sheet from the piano and replaces it with all the knickknacks he's collected throughout the day. then he starts playing the piano, and for me, it made me think that he's playing the tune of his life. These little odds and ends, to me, represent the music sheet of his life, that he, too, also enjoys the small things, and all those small things put together is much more enjoyable than his biggest dream. Another message I saw from the movie is that even if a person may act a certain way, it's not good to treat them badly. 22 has insecurities, that she's not meant to be on Earth, that something is wrong with her for not being able to fill in her patch. And all those mentors she's had for thousands of years just keep confirming it, always pointing out her negative qualities and giving up on her, repeatedly telling her that she'd amount to nothing. Then we see that once she finally really found that she liked Earth, Joe basically told her the same thing, and that's what ultimately broke her. You never know what someone is feeling inside, and just because they may act a certain way doesn't mean that you should treat them poorly. So by the end of the movie, I'm not actually sure if Joe learned his lesson. If I saw myself berating someone, or saw that someone views me the way 22 viewed Joe at the end of the movie, I would really reevaluate my life. And I kind of wish we saw that with Joe. I wish we got like a quick snippet of him, really apologizing to 22. That's not much of a complaint, just something that, I wish would have happened. I do like Joe's character arc, though. How he went from being dismissive, arrogant, and selfish to realizing he's lived a great life, even if he didn't achieve his big dream. He realizes that those qualities about himself are what led to his disconnect from his friends and family, and that maybe the greatest treasure in life is being able to enjoy every day and find little things that put a smile on your face. He then ultimately passes the baton to 22 so she can find love in her life. It sort of reminds me of that saying that you'll never be happy until you learn to be happy by yourself. Or in order for you to love someone, you first have to know how to love yourself. Overall, I think this movie contemplates what it really is to live. I think that very question is what most of us are always searching for on a daily basis. We are always trying to figure out what makes us happy. And how do we keep ourselves happy? What does it mean to live a full life? Is it your dreams, the small everyday joys, meeting new people and trying new things, having meaningful conversations, helping and teaching people, passing on your knowledge to the next generation, or being kind and accepting? Well, overall, I think it may be a little of all of those things, but ultimately, I think it's up to you to choose what life means for you. If you watch the ending of the movie, the very end, I think you might find that message. The ending of the movie didn't really have a strong definitive ending, and I think that's the point. Even the question of what was Joe's spark goes unanswered, and I think that's because a spark doesn't have to be one specific thing. Your spark is simply you. It's everything you enjoy, and it's the joy you bring to others. So when Jerry asks Joe what he's going to do with his second chance at life, and Joe admits he doesn't know, but he's going to live each day to the fullest, and it ends with him stepping out his door. That, I think, is the movie telling you that what we do now is up to us. Well, guys, thank you for listening to my thoughts. I hope you enjoyed them. Did you agree with my deeper meanings? Did you see another deeper meaning that I missed? Or did this movie stick with you? I think the more you watch the movie and the more you pay attention to it, the more you'll enjoy it. Like I said, the first time, by the end of it, I was kind of confused and a little bit disappointed in the emotional aspect. But after I kept watching it and I kept really paying attention, I think it's a great movie. And I hope it gets an award, to be honest, especially with that message in there. So thank you for listening. Please leave a comment on how you thought of the movie. Did you like it? Did you dislike it? Did it make you cry like all Pixar movies do? So the topic of soul has been reeled in. Thank you for listening, and please tune in next week for my latest updated video. And I hope you guys have a better new year than this past year of 2020. And maybe if you take these messages, it might be. It's Terry time!